Okay, so to everyone who's here, just note that this is being recorded, and we will post highlights of this on YouTube. So just keep note of that. So welcome again. I'm Duru Hanatu, VP of Development for Roses. Roses is rising opportunities through science, education, and service. We are a nonprofit charitable organization with a mission to improve the quality of mental health for young adults worldwide. Our target demographic is about 18 to 35. And we have two main goals or strategic targets for our charity. The first one is to provide free mental health counseling by credentialed professionals and academic scholarships, and to provide academic scholarships to increase the number of well-trained health professionals, and to just normalize the discussion about mental health. Probably all of you have been hearing all sorts of commercials on social media and TV and whatnot. All sorts of companies are jumping into this because there's a huge gap in terms of professionals. And we want to be a part of the solution, but we are not a commercial enterprise, we're a charity. And so this is why our mission is particularly important. We just got started earlier this year. We launched in February. So of course, we are also accepting donations to further this mission. You can check us out at rosescharity.com to learn more and to tell your friends about us. This is all the different channels. We were fortunate to have some interns this summer, and they got us all set up on these different social media channels. So you can find us on Twitter, now X. I think we have to change that graphic there. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and soon to come on Threads, which is Meta's new social messaging platform. So check us out there. These links are also on rosescharity.com. All right. So with that intro, I am very pleased to welcome Tiara Fennell. She's an assistant professor of couple and family therapy in the Department of Family Science in University of Maryland School of Public Health, and the clinic director for the Center for Healthy Families. She's a PhD candidate in the Human Development and Family Science, Marriage and Family Therapy from Virginia Tech, and has received her master's in marriage and family therapy from Northwestern University. I'll let her talk to the rest of her credentials, but we are so fortunate to have someone so qualified to talk to us today about narcissism in school and work. So with that, Tara, I will pass it off to you.
All right.
I will stop my share so you can share your presentation.
Okie dokie. Thank you, Duru, and thank you all for joining as I am transitioning. Let me find my PowerPoint slides. Share. For some reason, it is not allowing me. Here we go. I'll just share desktop.
Got it? Okay, cool.
There we go. Yes. Alrighty. So as Duru said, my name is Tiara Fennell. I am the clinic director for the Center for Healthy Families, as well as an assistant clinical professor at the University of Maryland College Park's master's program in couple and family therapy, which is a full mouthful. I'm also a PhD candidate at Virginia Tech in the same program of marriage and family therapy under the Human Development Family Science Department. And I'm excited to come back for a part 2. So last month, Roses was kind enough to invite me to talk about narcissistic behaviors and gaslighting and in our personal relationships. And this time we're coming back to talk about dealing with these behaviors at school or on our jobs. So there is an interactive part of the presentation a little bit later. I hope to have a couple of you volunteer to engage in some enactments with me, but if not, please be active in the chat. Throw out any questions and things as they come up as we go throughout the presentation, and we can answer all of those towards the end. All right. So wanted to give a brief overview of like, what are toxic behaviors? What do we mean when we say this? So toxic behaviors can be things like aggression, arrogance, cruelty, lying, forms of manipulation. You see the list here. I think we all have experienced these things on some level or another, and in some ways, maybe we haven't acted those on others, knowingly or unknowingly. These are behaviors that can be very harmful to the victims who experience this. And a lot of these behaviors in particular come across when we think about narcissistic personality disorder or narcissistic tendencies. So what is narcissism? I like to differentiate for people what narcissism is in terms of a diagnosis versus I think, we tend to throw that word out a lot these days about, someone is a narcissist. And in reality, research shows us that about 0.05 or 0.1%, ranging from 0.05 to 0.1% of people in the population actually have this are diagnosed with this disorder. So I want to make it very clear that sometimes what we are seeing may be more so narcissistic tendencies versus actual narcissistic personality. And just to kind of define that, narcissistic personality disorder is a mental health condition where people tend to have an unreasonably high sense of their own importance. They need and they seek out attention and want people to admire them. They also normally lack the ability to understand or empathize with others. So what does this look like? Last time when I was here, I talked about what this looked like in our personal relationships. This time we're focusing on what it looks like in school and at work. So let's get started. Before I kind of go into my list, you will see a theme. I did my best to choose as many the office memes and gifts that I could find, because I think Michael Scott is just a very good but humorous example of some of the things that we'll be discussing today. So what does it look like for people to have narcissistic personality disorder or narcissistic tendencies in the workplace or at school? First, they likely are stealing credit. They want to take credit for the things that are going well and tend to undermine or downplay other people's participation in that. That can be really hurtful and damaging, especially when we think about school and work, where you are assessed on the work that you do, how you're showing up, how you're engaging. So that's something that's definitely something to look out for. I could not find an office meme for this, but I also felt like the timing of the news cycle and this particular gift that popped up when I did my search felt timely, so I left it there. But we also find that these people avoid accountability for their mistakes. So in the previous slide, they still credit when things are going well. The project that you're doing and participating in is successful. It's like, yeah, that's all me. I did that. Nobody else helped. But on the reverse, if things aren't going well or problems occur, narcissists tend to lack responsibility for how those problems came to be. They tend to blame others. They might lie about what happened or fully deny the severity of the issue. They also tend to demand attention. As you remember in my earlier slide about narcissistic personality disorder, these are folks who are extremely self-centered and want all of the attention on them. So this doesn't come at a surprise. They want everyone else to feel that they are just as important as they believe they are. And so they do different things to kind of enact and get that attention from others. Gossiping about other people. So they tend to thrive in chaos. We see folks often pitting each other against each other, whether that's coworkers or classmates, and they use their triangulation tactics to do this. Now, what is triangulation? For those of you who may not be familiar with this term or in the CFT space, triangulation is when essentially, if we think about the root word, which is triangle, it has three sides. There is the person, let's say your coworker, yourself, you all are having an issue, or you recognize like they're starting to cause chaos. They're taking up all the attention, and some of their toxic behaviors you have become the center of. What they tend to do is bring someone else into this dynamic and get them to side with them or turn against you, at least, in order to make their story and what they're presenting feel more real, authentic. And really, it's about the court of public opinion in this. If they can get other people to be on their side, then it's going to be harder for you to defend yourself against some of the other tactics and behaviors that they enact. So reacting negatively to feedback, I think what is most clear and what I have found to be true in my own experiences dealing with folks, whether clients or in my personal life or at work, who tend to present with these narcissistic tendencies, it doesn't matter how nicely you can put something to them and how constructive and good the criticism can be, it's not going to go over well, because narcissistic people or folks who tend to have these tendencies tend to be highly sensitive to criticism. They feel threatened and they become extremely defensive or angry as a response to this injury. So that's something to be on the lookout for. And despite all these negative things or behaviors that they're enacting, these people tend to be extremely likable, which I find quite wild. But in reality, that's a part of how they, I would say, kind of create this role in this presentation so that people will be on their side. Like, so for example, I'm sure we've all heard or seen in some movie where there's a couple and there's a particular partner who is abusive or being harmful, and the partner that is the victim of that abuse and harm, when they start to tell people, the response they get back is like, really, that person? I don't know. They never seemed that way to me. They have such a good personality. They're so nice. They're so kind, etc. So this is a part of the, what I would say, manipulative behaviors that come out when dealing with someone who is a narcissist or has narcissistic tendencies. They can be well liked amongst their colleagues or classmates, and know how to put on a good first impression, but time eventually will show their true character. Another thing that is true of narcissists or people with narcissistic tendencies is that they feel above the rules. They tend to take shortcuts. They can make unethical decisions when they believe it's justified, but often hold others to a different standard. So I'm into the pop culture of things, and there's a song where I think a quote from it is, it's okay when they do it, it's not when I do it. And that is definitely the definition of narcissists and how they engage. It's okay for them to do these things that are harmful or unethical or these shortcuts, but if other people were to do it, they will hold you to a very different standard and probably highlight that more and use that as a part of the narrative that they're putting out of like, I'm so great, I'm so wonderful, you should side with me, you should believe me. Passive aggression. So I know for me, I love direct communication. So passive aggression is one of those tendencies that can tend to get under my skin a little bit. Narcissists or people with these tendencies may present as extremely sarcastic or negative. They can also use gaslighting as a way to justify their actions. So for an example, someone offering a criticism to you, but then they quickly follow up with, oh, I was just kidding, or no offense, I love you, those type of things, where and the gaslighting piece, I think, is particularly interesting. I think in my previous presentation that I did last month, we talked a little bit more in depth about what gaslighting is. And it's a very interesting form of mental manipulation where the victims who experience this begin to question their own reality. They begin to question their intuition and how they feel, if they are justified in how they're feeling, because these individuals enacting this form of manipulation on them kind of communicates in a way, right, where I'm going to insult you or I'm going to say something intentionally harmful. But then when you start to respond appropriately with defensiveness or being upset, kind of walk it back and say, what do you mean? I didn't say that, or I didn't do that. And when you do that repeatedly, people really start to question their reality. So this is a very, very precarious, I think, tendency to be aware of. They're also seeking constant reassurance. So some terms that I learned in doing my research for this presentation was covert and vulnerable narcissists. I don't know that I've heard anyone specifically name that there are different types of narcissists. The ones that I'm used to tend to be the individuals who are grandiose and loud and boisterous in their presentation. But there are some narcissists who tend to lean on the more insecure side, where they require ongoing reassurance and validation throughout the workday, throughout the school day. I would even say borderline acting as a victim, like, woe is me, look at me, this is happening to me, tell me I'm smart, tell me I'm great, tell me I'm these things. And that becomes a constant part of the dynamic with that individual. They tend to interrupt and monopolize conversations. So narcissists tend to present as self-absorbed, and they prioritize their thoughts and their needs before everyone else's. And they do this by interrupting often, ignoring others, or just hogging all of the attention. They're extremely jealous. Even though they may be they present as incredibly arrogant, they also are profoundly empty and insecure. And part of that presentation, that role that they're playing in presenting in this loud and boisterous way, charismatic way, is to kind of hide those things. And so the jealousy piece, even at the slightest hint of someone else's good fortune, tends to bring out all of these other behaviors and things that we have discussed previously. Oops. Here we go. Nothing is good enough for them. They have extremely high standards. No matter how hard you're working on a project, they tend to be annoyed or angry at your performance, and they often hold unrealistic expectations for how others should behave. Whew, so I'll take a breath there. That's a quick overview of some of the signs and tendencies to look out for in a coworker, in a classmate, or any other professional setting of someone who tends to act with these narcissistic tendencies, or who may have narcissistic personality disorder in general. And so seeing that list all together, I know for me, can be overwhelming. And it's like, well, what do I do with that? What if this person is my boss? What if this is someone who works on my team? What if this is someone who is in my classes? How am I supposed to engage with them? How do I protect myself? All those things. So we're going to take the next half of this presentation and talk a little bit about how you can deal with those behaviors at work. The first is learn what gaslighting is. Understand, if I want to use this language, the weapon that's kind of being used against you. What is gaslighting, and making sure you keep yourself grounded in what you know to be true. I think it's very easy, especially if this is an individual that you engage with on a consistent basis, having these interactions and having someone kind of undermine your reality requires a lot of emotional energy and mental work, mental gymnastics, quite frankly, to make sure you stay grounded in your truth and what is actually happening in the world, and not just what this person is conveying to you. The second is avoid taking things personally. I think in the workplace and in school, this is most important. Even taking away the kind of extreme version of what we're talking about here when it comes to narcissistic tendencies and toxic behaviors. Work and school, people are bringing a lot of stuff with them to these places that may not be appropriate for them to be, but they are there, right? Because we're all human. I have found that even for myself, it's a lot of coaching of, this person said or did something that I didn't really care for, but I'm going to choose not to take it personal, because who knows what they have going on, who knows what's happening for them. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to address it the way that it should be, but I know not to internalize the behaviors or the responses or interactions that I'm having with that individual that could be potentially harmful to me. Also, make sure you maintain realistic expectations. Even when someone is formally diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, this isn't something that goes away. It's just something that hopefully they're getting the support that they need from a professional to help navigate and disrupt, their choice, or they're choosing to enact these behaviors. But it will be something that they will have to continuously work on and be mindful of. So in that regard, make sure you set realistic expectations about what this person is going to do, how they're going to react, and how they're going to be, because then it keeps you from being disappointed, quite frankly. And then you can better gauge how you need to respond in situations. The fourth one, and I would say the most important, is document, document, document. Write down all of the interactions you have with this person. Do your best to document your conversations in writing. So if you have a hallway conversation and something happens, send an email, or keep a journal, making sure you have something to keep track in case things need to escalate, to have further intervention, to point to, on this day, this interaction happened with this person. And it's a lot. Like I said, this is a lot of work on your end. I think that's the hardest part about dealing with someone who has narcissistic tendency or a personality. To be in their presence and in their atmosphere, it requires a lot of labor, emotionally and mentally, on your part, in order to protect yourself, number one, but also keep your own sanity and groundedness about what's happening to you and around you. The fifth point is to set firm boundaries. Make it very clear about what you will and will not engage in. Boundaries, I think I said this in the previous presentation I did last month. Setting good boundaries should always focus on what you will do and how you will act, or what you will not do or how you will not respond under certain circumstances. Anytime you say, if you do this and I'm not going to do that, that's not really setting a boundary. I think that just makes things more conflictual, but kind of centering on yourself and say, you know what, after 5 p.m., I'm not available to check my email. If you have anything, if there's anything urgent, it will have to wait until the next day. Whatever makes sense, or makes sense for you in those particular situations. The sixth one, yes, that's correct, is remain assertive. I think part of how narcissists work, or people who have these tendencies work, is they hope that you get tired and choose not to fight back, right? So continuing to engage in your assertiveness, setting your firm boundaries, and being unmoved about how you engage with them, and how you show up at work would be super important here as well. The next step would be consult with your boss or school leadership or other people in authority or in a position to be a support. Make sure you reach out to them, ask them what they think you should do. Make sure they are aware of these situations that you've been documenting. Excuse me. And hopefully they're able to offer you the support that you need of how to navigate or separate yourself from this individual in these settings. The next one is don't engage in the gossip. I know it's real easy and is very tempting to do at times because the tea is always hot. But doing your best to disengage from the gossip mill, and trying to drink your water and mind your business is the best advice that I could give to anybody, especially if you are already noticing in your work or school environment that there are, how would I say, dynamics that may not be the most healthy or tend to perpetuate like these maladaptive interactions and behaviors in people. It's just best to kind of sit on the side, don't engage. Make sure you're mindful of excessive flattery or love bombing. This can be, I know we've heard this more about romantic relationships and being aware of these type of behaviors, but that can also happen at work too. People, or at school, like folks kind of going a little bit overboard with the compliments and the flattery. I think at times it can be very genuine, but in combination with some of these other tendencies or behaviors that we've discussed earlier, it's something to definitely, if you see it and you feel it, keep your spidey senses up, and make sure you're paying attention. Do your best to avoid sharing personal details. I know for me personally, I tend to be very boundaried in my work and school life, and not in the sense that I'm cold or shut off, but I'm also aware that what's happening with me personally, I don't want to be engaged in the workplace. There's certain things that I hold very close to my chest, just so that there is not an opportunity for people to overstep or to use this information against me in some way, whether intentionally or not. And the last is to talk to human resources, student affairs, again, somebody else of authority. I know for our college students who are starting back, Title IX offices. These are people who will be able to help you take action, whether it's direct action against this individual or just action for yourself, whether that's I'm changing my class, or I'm moving out of this dorm, whatever that looks like for you. These are individuals that will be able to help and support you in making those shifts and setting those hard boundaries. All right. So now we've gotten to the interactive part of this presentation, and I'm going to, there we go, so I can see everybody. This is a little role play. I have about 4 different scenarios. If people feel comfortable, would love, after I give the scenarios, would love to do a little role play with someone based on the how to deal, the coping strategies that I've offered, what you would do in these different scenarios. If nobody feels comfortable to engage in a role play, totally fine. You can throw them in the chat. And I think Duru, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of throwing out some of the things that people share, that would be really helpful for me.
Sure, will do.
All right. So the first one, you provide feedback on your coworker's presentation and they send you a very defensive email. Anybody interested in role playing this? If not, throw some answers in the chat. How would you respond to this? You provide feedback on your coworker's presentation, and they send you a very defensive email. Oh, I see the chat box numbers going up. Keep a note of it and document. That's perfect. Ask for specifics on what about the feedback was inaccurate. Someone said, I think I would ignore it. Love that. Any other thoughts how anybody else would respond? No? All right, let's go to the next one. So this is a school scenario. You're working on a group art project for class, and your group mate tells your teacher that they were the only ones who contributed to the design. I see some faces. So your group mate is taking all the credit for the project that y'all turned in. You had nothing to do with it. It was all them. Okay, find an opportunity to talk one-on-one with the teacher. Love that. All of the above. But also in front of them as well. That's right. Okay. Try to provide documentation of the group members' efforts so they know everyone helped. Love that. Love that. Any other thoughts before I move to the next one? Okay. This down. So you submit a proposal for a new support program for new students on campus. Your supervisor emails stating, I have a lot of experience in this area. Why wouldn't you consult me? Mm-hmm. You created this new project. You're excited about it. You know it's going to be a helpful opportunity for new students arriving on campus and getting acclimated. And your supervisor said, is defensive, quite frankly, and feels slighted at the fact that you wouldn't ask them for support or consultation.
Sorry, just for clarification, his proposal is being submitted to the supervisor or someone else or some other team?
To the supervisor.
Ah, okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That was a great point of clarification. Okay. Oh, that's great. I wasn't aware of that. Let's set up some time to brainstorm next week. Okay. I like that. So you let them know like, oh man, didn't know that you wanted to be a part of this. Let's talk next week. I love that as well. Nina, you genuinely unsure? Got you. I would make an excuse that focuses on others versus them. Love that. Love that. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
What's the right thing to do here? Because I don't know how you would, because like personally, I would want to like tell them, like, I recognize your expertise and then explain like what Tanya said, but I'm not too sure if validating them would be the right thing to do because that's what they're looking for.
Fair enough. This is tricky. I've had this experience before, and I think how I handled this situation was a bit of a mix of all those things, right? One, I made it very clear that I was under the understanding that this was a project that I was supposed to spearhead. And that's what I did. And I would also acknowledge that I know you have a lot of experience in this area. It sounds like you're interested in collaborating with me on this. And as Lamont had said earlier, let's set up some time next week to talk further about how we can expand this. I've even for myself have said that I took that as an opportunity to set a boundary around communication, just to let them know, like, I apologize, I was unaware that this was an interest that you had. Let's talk more in our meeting next week about how we can communicate better and more effectively with each other so we don't get lost in translation. Because like we talked about before, people who tend to have these narcissistic tendencies, I would say because they want all of the attention on them and they tend to take up the space in these moments where the attention isn't on them or they feel ignored or slighted, this is a way to kind of like center it back on them. And we have to kind of have to pick our battles in this. Like the validation piece is to kind of coax this from becoming a bigger issue and from becoming a personal issue. Because at a certain point, now you're being disrespectful. What do we do about that? Now we got to go to HR. We're going to be the meeting next week. So for me, the validation kind of comes into I see you, I hear you. And here are my boundaries, and here's what I understood. But I am happy to, moving forward, collaborate on this in a way that is going to be effective and respectful, and just kind, quite frankly. But I appreciate that question. It is a hard one. Okay, this is our last one. You have one classmate who gossips about other students in your class with you, or tries to gossip with other people in your class with you. What do you do? Tell them you're not interested in such gossip. That's right, Duru. Sit on the other, so separate yourself. Love that. Boundaries and disengage for sure. All right. Any other thoughts? These were all great. And I think, obviously scenarios like this, it makes it easy to seem like, yeah, I'll just enact these coping strategies and things will be fine. And in the grand scheme of things, you hope that. And I think it takes a lot, like I said before, when you are engaging with people, whether it's in your personal relationships or in your work, school life, it requires a lot of mental and emotional labor on your part in order to, I would say, disrupt the cycle, right? Because it's very easy to allow this individual's behavior to enact your own defense mechanisms, and rightfully so. I think that's a normal response. And in particular, when I'm thinking about school and work, which are places where you are also trying to build your own reputation, build your network, you want to be very careful about how you engage with these things and make sure you don't get roped into the dynamic, into the circus, if you will. Because the way these folks operate, they will tend to create a narrative and a story that if you choose to engage them the way that they're looking for, it would affirm all the I would say, untruths that they are trying to spread or create about you or other people in your professional space. And so you just want to be mindful of that. Thank you all for your participation on that. And so that's kind of the end of my presentation. And I just like to plug, as I said before, I'm the clinic director for the Center for Healthy Families. And one of my students is here. I feel very excited that she's here, Nina. If you all are interested in seeking any individual, couple, or family therapy services, our email and our phone number are here. We are actively taking clients, especially relational cases. It can be related to dealing with narcissistic tendencies or toxic behaviors, but we care for people that come with a range of presenting problems. So we would love to hear from you if you or someone you know is seeking services. And then I end with a very large and hearty thank you. Thank you for spending the evening with me. Hopefully you learned some things or got some new perspective. If anybody is interested in collaborating in the future, or you just have more questions, my information is here on the screen. And that is that.
All right, thank you. So I just have one slide to share as well, and then we will go into Q&A. So once again, everyone, thank you for attending this webinar with us. Be a part of our community. There's our website, rosescharity.com. Bookmark it. You can email us with any questions. If you want to be added to our list of supporters and constituents, there's a phone number you can use, and this is our charity information down at the bottom. So again, thank you for attending. And with that, I will stop the share and stop the recording, and we can go into Q&A.